Welcome to Potentials. This is Leeja, and today is really a special day. I'm really excited about this episode. Andrea Martin is a professor at Worcester State University in Massachusetts. She's a mystic and a clairsentient, and she teaches a course in disclosure. Frank Chille has been a self-proclaimed seeker of arcane knowledge for the past 45 years. He is a student of health, metaphysics, ancient civilizations, comparative religions, and has knowledge of mostly unknown contactee experiences from individuals he has met along his life path. He has had first-hand exposure to advanced technology products, has traveled extensively throughout the U.S., and has lived abroad. Frank has spoken publicly and conducted seminars on diverse subjects on both coasts, as well as for the military on subjects including energy studies and lighting effects on health. He has done many radio programs, has also functioned as an associate producer for the Jeff Rense program for the past 6 years, as well as he has been interviewed on Gaia TV. Additionally, he has trained individuals as well as marketing teams around the country and has conducted forensic corporate accounting for a Fortune 100 firm in 3 states. Recently had been managing a firm with a unique product for the transportation and heavy equipment markets. Thank you both for joining us. This is quite an honor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fun. It's grand, yeah.
Well, Andrea, I was going to give you the floor first. I don't see you, though. You have to say something.
Yes. Oh, no. I'm on.
Hi.
I can see
Thank
me.
You.
Hopefully,
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward. So
yes.
I got my spectacles as well. So yeah, this morning I was hoping to have a little bit of something to say, and they actually answered the question that you had sent us, which is what blew me away. So I was sitting like, I'm like, okay, can you guys come through? And they're like, get your tarot. I'm like, okay, here they come. So this is actually what they told me this morning. And like I said, they actually answered your question, which is crazy. So they said, this is the time called the Great Awakening, but we want you to consider it as the time of a great detachment. So they showed me this image of a glacier calving. Detachment in that you distance or sever the need to exist and feed into hate, ego, separation from self, others, and separation from eternity itself. You have decided to do this because you no longer look outside yourself for truth. You know that all that you seek is waiting inside of you. This is knowing the power of the self. Only by severing from the illusions, and they put me in this really dark fog, like really dark, dank, like fog. Only by severing from the illusions perpetrated over you can you find peace and truth. It is no longer an earth about them. It is an earth for you. And by initiating this, you simultaneously initiate it for all, other people, other animals, and you enter a new cosmos. This new perspective automatically changes and shifts all that needs to be reborn. What you call the darkness, power, control, chaining of free will, the cavern manifested to block you from the truth, will no longer exist. It simply fills in. You do not, in actuality, have to worry over what you need to do. It is more about the walking away from supporting all that you and the earth no longer and never wanted to need. It is not your destiny to be a mother for the feeding of evil. That must be cut free. The well for their energy is now dry. Forge a path of love for this process, starting with yourself. It is like a flow, something very, a flower bud, they said. They showed me this picture of like a flower opening up. So you find love and it begins to open the flower. See yourself as a bud that relaxes and unfurls each petal through the energy of love. We love feeling you discover this. And they ended with their love for us. And I said, our love for them.
That's awesome.
It's very profound.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, yes.
They were ready this morning. They were ready to go.
Yeah.
Tremendous cosmic truth in that message.
Yeah.
Yes, pure love. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it was just real nice when it comes through. Yeah.
Thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
Well, that was pretty much, it was getting kind of like, I was kind of, when they were coming, they kept coming, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, oh, no, there's one more thing we wanted to show you the flower. I'm like, okay, flower, yeah. And then
That's beautiful.
they're just really, yeah, they're just really in love with us. I mean, they're just so happy with what we're doing. Yeah.
Andrea, it's like a blossom of truth.
Yeah, that's what they want to show. They're showing me this flower, like just the way it's a bud, and then the way it, like, you just relax, and all the flowers come open, and they even show the petals when the flower is all, fully, after it's kind of done, and it falls, and the petals, they show me like the petals are just gonna flow with love, like all over the place. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what else to say about that. That's just
I don't
kind
think
of
they ever
overwhelming. It's kind of like,
ever want. I think they just want us to be like, yep. And I
yeah,
don't
I
think
feel it. I feel it, but yeah.
Andrea, I'd like a transcription of that. When you get a chance, I'd love if you could transcribe that and send it to me.
Yeah. I do automatic writing. That's how I get it. So everything's always written.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
And
That's
I'll
so
tell you, who sent it to me, Frank. It's a high council. So
Okay.
I mean,
Fabulous.
I guess the only other thing was like Ika had something he wanted to talk about, but if you, I'm gonna make it
Yes.
for later on. Was he was
Please.
yeah, he was really he wanted to kind of inform people. I don't know. He picked these two subjects. Well, one having to do with food, and then the other one having to do with relationships. I suppose we should describe who he is first.
Sure.
Yes.
So he's a Pleiadian man. And he's been with me ever since I was a baby. And I asked him this morning, did you ever come to me physically? And he said, yes, when you were very, very, very small. So he's been with me my whole life. And we are connected in a relationship, a DNA type contract type thing, from the Pleiades through here. So he remained in his body, and I came as a starseed. So he then, I think this happens for most people. You always have someone, a contact that remains in their original body, and then you kind of work together that way. So he's here on Earth right now. I don't know if you have any questions. Oh, that may yeah, he's here on Earth right now, and we communicate telepathically. So he was talking about the food that's here on Earth, and what he wanted to say was that the processed food, I mean, in generally just all the food is an issue, which has to get sort of changed. But what he wanted to say about processed food was, he's like, they don't eat, so for them, they don't even see that as food. So it isn't something he would even want to eat. So he says, if you want to stop eating it, you'll no longer want it. So he likens it to an addiction. So he says that's what it actually does to your body. It makes you addicted to it, something like a cigarette or alcohol. And he says, but once you just stop cold turkey, he recommends just stop eating it. He says then that addiction will go away. So what you think of it as a craving is actually an addiction. And he says it's what do you say? It's just not food, And he's like, if people are eating, he said that's actually why we have so much of a problem with not only health issues but obesity and things like that. He says it's because people are constantly craving nutrition, but they're not getting it anywhere. So if they continue to you're always feeling hungry, because you're not eating any food basically. And then he says, but food for them. You want to also make a point that is like, but food is still pleasure, right? He's so there's like apples and oranges. It isn't that you have to sit, like, I kind of guess image, like, you sit in a corner eating raw kale and a carrot. He's like, it's like, no, food is still very pleasurable. And he says, what'll happen is you'll start to crave that food that you actually need, that your body will actually call to you nutritionally. And I'm going to have to say I agree, because that's actually how I feel. Like I totally crave vegetables, like vegetables. And it actually is, people think now that, oh, like, it's health food, or like, I don't like, of course it's health food. That's what food is. But it's like they don't think they crave it, I guess, maybe. But you will, once you detox your body. That's what he said too, is like, once you detox from all that garbage that you're eating trash, he says, then you'll see that your body will start to crave real food. So they're also vegetarian. But again, that's up to people. I always kind of recommend, if they want to try a week without eating any kind of animal body parts, basically, you might feel different, just to give yourself a chance. The Pleiadians don't recommend you eat animals, but what can you unearth? And so he says once you get out of that detox and everything, it's actually going to be very, very pleasurable. Like, and then they enjoy, like, food is very enjoyable, right? And he says it's going to be fulfilling, not only like you enjoy the eating process and the making of food, taking the time to kind of sort of like ritually make food. But the process of eating is quite nice, he says, and then it's going to be, you're going to actually feel this on a cellular level. It's going to be very, very different, and you'll notice your body changing. So that's what he wanted to say, pretty much on that. I don't know if anybody, oh, he might mention things like desserts and stuff. And I also talked to him about alcohol, because I was talking to my friend Nancy once, and I said, Nancy, eventually they're going to come here. We're going to have, go out for tea and stuff like that. And he's like, I want to go out for beer. And I said, and he said that was a joke, but no, he does like, he does like alcohol. Not in everything, again, everything's in control. And he mentioned too about things like, desserts and sweets and things like that. They of course also enjoy that. And he says that's not something you should, I mean, you eat like sort of those kind of things. Not necessarily like he says, obviously with moderation, but it's like just watch what kind of, like, if you can make your own dessert, something like that, enjoying that kind of sweetness. But again, watching out for anything else, like obviously sodas, he's like, absolutely not, nothing like that. Yeah. So the next one was on relationships. I don't know if
Yeah, that seems like that would be interesting.
yeah, so relationships, you want to talk about that. Okay. He says, relationships really, it's like it's the relationships between two beings, and it could be people or non-humans. And I said, well, non-humans already understand all this. And he's like, yes, they do. But he says this is like a pure sensation that happens between two beings. It's very, very intuitive, right? It's not something you have to like work at or plan, he says. So he gave me this, and I think, so is it, I asked this, and he said, yes. I said, it's sort of like when you come home from work, people always have this image of coming home from work and your dog is all excited to see you. That kind of concept. And he says, yes, because that's the feeling that I get. Unless I'm trying to like, we kind of merge feelings. So what he was able to do, yeah, they exactly. What he was able to do is kind of like we're kind of merged. I don't know how this works, but they do this. And I think that's something that you can have with an animal. Certainly, that's where I first learned it. But he says, it's all about like it's an innocence. Right. It's an innocence. It's again, it's almost like a DNA connection. And you don't work at it. It's totally natural. I mean, I think you have all these, like, think about all the gurus that are out there for humans right now about self-help, so like fixing your relationships, all these kinds of things like that. It's like there's no concept of that. There's no concept of ever having to really fix a relationship. So he says, try like, just kind of softening yourself, opening yourself up and looking within. So stop looking out. I think this is probably part of it. You look within yourself for love and for affection.
Yes.
But you don't look outside. Stop looking outside yourself for these things, right? So I guess maybe what humans might do would be like, oh, if you just do the dishes once a week, or if you would do this or this, that, like it's not outside you. It's never outside you. Yeah, and he says, but because if you're constantly going outside, like, oh, maybe if we went on more vacations, or maybe if we went out to eat, or whatever people do in relationships, we got to do more of this or that. He says, no, that's never going to work, and it's going to totally fail, because you're never going to get enough. It's basically a trap where you're always like, it's a train track, basically. So like the idea of a train track, and it's like, it just never, we got to do this, then we got to do this, then this, and it's never going to end. And you're never going to get what it is that you're looking for, because what you're looking for exists within.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he says, well, two people in their own power, two people. So it's like this idea of like, okay, there's two separate people, and both of them are totally within their own sense of self. And that is shared between the two of them when they come together, energetically. It's a share. It's not a codependency. There's no fear. There's no nothing. It's like, it's just these two things that come together. And that's what a relationship is. So that's pretty much.
Wow. I love
Very
that.
good. Very good.
That's beautiful. I love it. It's funny because while you were talking, my cat jumped up on my lap, and he was watching you intensely, like he really likes you.
She's
It's good
demonstrating.
energy. Good energy.
Yes, he was definitely, and he was like, yes, this is true.
I mean, that's the work that I do. Animals totally get all this. Animals get all of it.
Yes, absolutely. I loved everything you said. I think that's everything was totally true, and I feel all of that. So thank you for sharing it.
Oh,
That
thank
was
you.
Andrea, you received both of those messages this morning?
Yes, those aren't me. Thank you so much. I think on no, those aren't from me. Yeah, that's from the High Council, the first one,
Yes.
and the second one was Ika and I had a conversation this morning because he wanted to share some stuff tonight with you guys. So
Sure,
thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Ika.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Frank, would you like to start with whatever you would like to say, whatever how
Well,
you would like to contribute to the conversation?
I recently had a bit of a revelation over the weekend, and I was calling Andrea yesterday to share with her. A fellow that I had gotten a chance to meet, his name is David Morehouse. I don't know if that name is familiar to you. Uh, he was in part of the original Operation Grow Flame that the government had put together for remote viewing. And he wrote a book about his experiences called Psychic Warrior. And got a chance to meet him in New York City, probably a little more than 15 years ago. And it was a small group of individuals that met with him. And I was so happy to get a chance to meet with him because his work as a remote viewer was highly, highly accurate. And he was so right on. He was sharing some incredible information and insights that he had gotten. And he was opening himself up for higher awareness and higher wisdom and understanding. And he said one of the things that he had experienced was when the visitors were coming here in the 50s, and Eisenhower had at least 4 meetings with the visitors, 2 with the ones that look like us, the Nordic type beings, and 2 that were the Greys. And the Greys had offered to share technology with us with a certain caveat that they had the ability to be able to trace and track certain individuals by bloodlines. And David Morehouse was given the coordinates for the military base where Eisenhower had met on the final time where they agreed to do this meeting with the Greys. And he said he went right into the room where the meeting was with Eisenhower and members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and there were several of the Gray beings there. And he said one of the tall Gray beings picked up that David was there watching what was going on, and this was going to be the treaty that they were going to form where they would exchange technology for the ability of examining individuals and interacting with people from 500 different bloodlines. So this being saw that David was there, picked up on his energy, and turned and looked at him. And David said, I knew that I didn't need to be there anymore. He said, the look that I got from this tall Gray was that I was in a place I shouldn't be. And he left immediately. But he told me of other things that he was involved in, that he was able to communicate with metals. He said everything has consciousness. And he said he was able to interact and communicate with metals, and they would give him information as to other metals to combine with these earth elements that we have to create newer alloys. And he said everything has consciousness. And he also said, too, that his ability was so precise that Mossad was after him to have him work exclusively for them. And he felt it wasn't his job just to work for one particular world government, that the information and technique that he has and the gift that he had was to be shared with all. So he had to go undercover for a period of time. And I turned on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel on Saturday night, and they were talking about portals and energy. And David Morehouse was being interviewed. And it's the first time I had seen him in a while. And he said that he was targeted by the CIA in 1986 to go out to Chaco Canyon. And that was an Indian settlement of Pueblo Indians that existed for probably almost 1,000 years. And they disappeared overnight. And it was 500 years ago that this occurred. So David said that he went there And he said he was there in 1986, and he was there to observe if there was any paranormal activity that was causing a situation where there could be an exit point from this planet. And he said that he saw on this one night, the sky was crystal clear, there was no moon, and he said he saw the sky form a series of concentric circles, and they started to move like they were moving inward. The concentric circles started to move inward like they were in motion. And he said, as soon as he saw that, he recognized that that was a portal. And he said that was a portal that the Pueblos exited from, because they disappeared like overnight. They left everything in their dwellings, their food, their pottery, everything was left there, and they all went through this portal into another dimension. And it was really interesting to see David Morehouse on Ancient Aliens describing that and showing that he still had that capability to be able to do that work. So what I did was last night, I reached out to him via email and to see if I could communicate with him again, and offer him an opportunity to come on to Jeff Rentz's program and discuss further insights that he has had. But I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was so extraordinary, Andrea. I wanted to share that with you. I don't know if you know anything about David Morehouse, but he was a high integrity, high sincere individual.
That's amazing. I knew about the Native Americans opening
Yeah.
the portal.
Yes. And they went on the program, Ancient Aliens, and he spoke to the elders in that area, and they gave him the information that David had seen. And he saw that with his physical eyes. And he said he has no idea when this portal would open up, but he said that was definitely used as an opportunity for them to go into another frequency or another dimension. And the elders of the tribes in that area verified what David said is true, that there was a portal that opened and they all went through that portal. So they're existing somewhere now at another frequency or in another dimension. But I thought it was really interesting, and getting a chance to see David Morehouse again, and knowing that he still has that gift and ability, I hope to be able to communicate with him, and I'll keep you folks posted.
Definitely.
That's very
It's
exciting.
wonderful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. It also explains a little bit too, like there are a lot of other native cultures that have sort of disappeared and nobody understood where they went. So this is a possibility that this has happened to other ones.
Yes.
As
And
well.
Linda and Andrea, the elders said of these tribes that their ancestors were not from Earth. Their ancestors were from the stars.
That makes sense.
It does.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
does.
That's
So I wanted to share that with you. And that was something that recently occurred. And I had told this to Andrea before, Linda, that I feel that when you're non-judgmental and open and receptive, you wind up meeting the most extraordinary individuals who share things with you that normally wouldn't be shared, because they know that you're not going in with presupposed concepts of what it is they may or may not have experienced. You know, we're all students, we're all learning.
Yes. And we're all family.
Yes, we're all one family. We're all one family. I'd like to, if you can, put up some of those slides that I had shared regarding the new vehicle concept that Mercedes has come up with.
Yes.
I'd like to discuss that in the origins of that.
Up right now in my files. Sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is the first one that I really thought was interesting. You can see the headband around her head.
Yes. This is a new concept vehicle, and I want to tell you the origins of this. There was a book written by Colonel Philip Corso called The Day After Roswell, and he was a colonel in military intelligence, and he also worked with the diplomatic corps with different countries around the world. And in 1947, after the Roswell crash, he was tasked with taking the technology from the craft that had crashed at Roswell. Actually, there was more than one craft. There were several others, too, that had crashed at the same time. There were some that had landed at the plain of St. Augustine, which is not too far away from the Roswell crash site. And the information that Colonel Philip Corso provided in the book were incredible photographs that he had access to that showed the interior of the craft, and inside the control room of the spacecraft, there was a part of the control panel that had places to put your hands, and the beings who were recovered from that crash, there was one that was alive and several that had already deceased, that had a headband, and they controlled the craft through the headband and through their handprints on the control panel of the craft. They used their thoughts to go from one place to another. And using thought is faster than light. So they could traverse any part of the galaxy, any part of the universe, by just thinking of where they want to go and what quadrant they want to visit, and they could be there instantaneously. Well, Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, that talked about taking this technology, and he was told to take it to corporations all around the country. They found a form of Pyrex in the craft. They found Velcro. They found fiber optics. They found all kinds of different things. Well, the original transistor came from the crash too. And he was tasked with taking this material to different corporations, giving them that and asking them to back engineer the technology and patent it so that there would be an Earth-based origin for this technology. But it actually came from the crash site. Wow. So these things have been done behind the scenes. And of course, Bell Labs developed the transistor. They developed fiber optics. They developed cell phones. All that stuff basically came out of the original crash site in 47. And it was Corso who took this information to all those different places. And there was a vow made between him and the 50 generals that were part of this transmission of information, that when the last general passed away, that Philip Corso could reveal this information. And he wrote this book called The Day After Roswell. And it's interesting because the greatest amount of sales for that book happened to be at the library in the Pentagon and the bookstore in the Pentagon. They sold more copies there than anywhere else. And if either you or Andrea have not seen that book, I recommend you take a look at it and take a look at the photographs of the inside of the craft that shows some of this technology. Well, jumping ahead, there's a friend that I have. He's a physicist, and he shared with me some incredible information. And he shared with me the work of another physicist by the name of Dr. Jack Sarfati. And he's a theoretical physicist. He was trained at Cornell, and he lives in San Francisco. And I was able to connect to him through LinkedIn. And he's got an incredible website. It's called stardrive.org. And it has all these advanced concepts that they're working on. It's going to be revealed and released to the public. So Dr. Sarfati came up with 24 pages of equations that showed the next form of propulsion we're going to be utilizing. And he said it was faster than light. So I'm connected to him through LinkedIn, and he sent me the 24 pages of equations that link metallurgy with awareness and consciousness. And he said, we're going to be using thought propulsion. And I reached out to him and I said, Dr. Sarfati, could this be the method that the star visitors are indeed utilizing to traverse vast distances to come here? And he said, absolutely. He said, we could back engineer what they have. He said, we're not yet at the point where we could align atoms the way they do for their technology. He said, but we're working on it. But he said, that's going to be the next form of technology we're going to be utilizing. So there'll be no limitation to wherever we want to go. You think of where you want to go and you'll be there.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm
so
excited.
So that technology ultimately got into Mercedes, and Mercedes developed this new vehicle called the Avatar that's thought controlled. And if you go on YouTube, you'll see the footage of the craft, or footage of the actual car. And it shows an individual who walks over to the car, and just by thought alone, he's got a headband on, and by thought alone, he turns on the lights of the vehicle. He has the door open up. He has the car start, and it's got cameras that show a 360-degree area all around the car. Okay, and again, it's completely thought controlled. There's no steering wheel. Okay, there's an apparatus that will also pick up the energy from your hand on the where the gear shift lever would be. And Mercedes is going to be introducing this to the public. It's going to be, it has the ability of being able to park itself, and it's got the ability of being able to travel diagonally, not only just forward and backward, but it's got the ability to travel diagonally. Okay, that's the photograph from the day after Roswell. This is from the actual control panel of the craft that landed at Roswell. And you can see the imprints for the hands, okay? And the pilot would stand there, and there would be a co-pilot as well. And they would have a headband on, and the headband, they would indicate where it is that they wanted to travel to, and they would travel. The craft would be transporting them by thought. So we're going to be utilizing that. But that technology and what Dr. Sarfati shared with me and what Mercedes is doing is an outcropping of all that was found and discovered in 1947. So we're going to have thought-controlled vehicles.
And when do you think that will happen? Like, do you have a kind of...
Mercedes has recently gotten a patent for a new type of battery system that Tesla had been looking to be able to patent themselves. It's carbon-based. It's made from 4 simple products. It's sustainable. It can be recycled. It's far safer than lithium. It's got a travel range of like 450 miles, and you can recharge the batteries in less than 10 minutes. And they're saying that they're going to lease this technology to other car manufacturers, and Tesla's already putting an order in for them. The batteries in a Tesla, to replace them would be $20,000. The batteries in the new Mercedes patented battery system is going to be $720, a big difference. So all the major automobile manufacturers are going to be utilizing this, and you're going to be seeing this. We're moving towards an electrical type vehicle, and we're going to be moving away from fossil fuels. And it's about time, because they've had these technologies for a long period of time, Linda and Andrea. And this physicist who introduced me to Dr. Sarfati, he told me of a report that he had gotten access to where it was over a 5-year period. They sent geologists and scientists to all the oil wells that had been pumped dry in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. They went back and they examined all those oil wells, and guess what they found? They were all full. The oil seeped up from the earth, and they're keeping it very, very quiet. They said if this was revealed, gas would sell for 10 to 15 cents a gallon. There's no shortage of oil. It's all manipulation. They said our country alone has enough oil to use at current usage rates for 1,000 years. But we need to be off of that. So thank God we're moving to electric vehicles, and I'm seeing more and more of them on the road here in New Jersey than ever before. Matter of fact, there was a ranking of states in the purchase and registering of electric vehicles. New Jersey ranks 7th right now of all 50 states. Pennsylvania, I think, ranks 12th or 13th. California is number 1. Florida, I believe, is number 2. New York is like number 3. But all the facilities around here, like the Walmarts and the convenience stores, they're all being built with recharging stations, even the Targets. And the ones that are older buildings, they're going in and are retrofitting them with charging stations, because that's going to be the future. And it's going to occur very, very quickly.
I totally believe that, because I live in Florida myself, and I live in Sarasota, which is on the West Coast. But I park in a parking garage every day, and there are actually on every floor, there are pumps for people to plug in their Teslas. And there are Teslas parked on every floor of the parking garage, being, charged every day. So yeah, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen very quickly. The governor of New Jersey had offered to people who buy electric vehicles that the state of New Jersey will install a charging station in their home, $4,000 charging station.
Wow.
And the state's going to pay for that. I mean, that's remarkable. It's really remarkable.
That's amazing. So there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of things that are going to happen finally.
Yes. Positively.
Yeah.
You had read a little bit of my biography, and I've gotten a chance to meet contactees in many different areas. And they're contactees that are interacting with individuals that look just like us. And they're all telling me positive interactions that are occurring with the visitors, and that we're not going to have to go through doom and gloom and death and destruction and all that. There's going to be adjustments along the way, but all the final outcomes are going to be positive. And one contactee told me that, there's a lot of people that have bitterness and they have a lot of anger and angst. And this one contactee told me that there's going to be a point when disclosure is ready to occur, that the crafted are going to be making themselves visible. They're going to start emanating the most incredible angelic harmonies and harmonics. And they said the sound that's going to be emanating from the craft will take away the swords from the hearts and hands of humankind.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't that
Yes,
beautiful?
that's exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. And yes, because of frequencies, right? Frequencies
Yes.
are everything. So yes, that's great. I'm really looking forward to healing frequencies coming to Earth.
Yes.
It will heal everything, everyone. So
Everyone.
yes,
Everyone. The lifespans of the visitors are thousands and thousands of years. And I've been told that they only give up their physical body when they make that choice consciously to do so. But there's no need to age as we age on this planet. We could rise above that because there's so much we can contribute during our being. And if you have full health, you could contribute tremendously to humankind or to other civilizations, other planets that are going through the same type of cycling and the same type of education that we're going through. And God knows it's about time that we reach graduation.
yes. And if we were just all helping each other,
Yeah,
just being here to help, and you extended your age and just continued to help, how much more healing could be done, and how much
truly.
more
I
happiness could.
mentioned this to Andrea that there's a firm in California called Genentech, and they have more than 20,000 world patents. They have 151 world patents on extending the telomere gene. As we age, the telomere gene recedes and we get older. Well, they're
Right.
talking about lifespans of 150 to 300 years of age in a tablet that I understand they've already perfected. And the tablet starts working within 30 days. Men above the age of 35 turns back the clock and rejuvenates them to between 32 to 35 years of age. Women above the age of 25 can rejuvenate them and reverse the clock on aging, and they would return to between 23 to 25 years of age. And there's only three things that nullify this: drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. If you
Wow.
eliminate those from your diet, the rejuvenation effect will fully take over, and your body will return to full harmonic balance.
That's truly amazing. And I don't do any of those things. So
So
that's
to you,
awesome.
it's an easy challenge.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. Bill Tompkins had told me that when he was working at TRW was tasked with coming up with a tablet to rejuvenate the body, and it's being used in Solar Warden for the program that's called 20 and Back. And
Yes.
Bill said that they had perfected that in 1972. And he said three of his friends that he knew while he was in the Navy would come back and visit him in San Diego once every 20 years, not at the same time. They'd come back at separate times, and they would be offered by the Navy if they want to return to living on Earth or continue to live amongst the stars.
Mm.
And they would visit Bill, and Bill said they always looked to be in their like early to mid 20s. He said, but they were as old as he was. He was in his 90s when he went through transition. And he said, Frank, he said, they would come and visit me. And he said, all three of them told me they did not want to return to Earth to live. They preferred living amongst the stars, but they like coming here from time to time just to visit. And he
Yes.
said they've been taking the tablets that he had worked on and helped to develop in 1972, and it completely rejuvenates the body. And they're using that in Solar Warden, the Navy program for off-planet service and off-planet work.
Wow. That's really encouraging. Where do you think, and I know this is a crazy question, but where do you think Bill Tompkins is right now? Like, is he?
This is interesting. I'm glad you had mentioned that. I'd spoken to Bob Wood, and he shared with Jeff Rentz and myself that he thought that Bill Tompkins really didn't pass, that he was brought inside, that he was given the formula that he had helped to work on and develop in 1972. And I told this to, I don't know if I mentioned this to Andrea, but after he passed, Bill would never text me, okay? We would talk on the phone. And I got two text messages from his phone number. as if he was reaching out to me. And I texted back, I said, I would call him Brother Bill. And I said, Brother Bill, is that you? But he wouldn't respond with a text message with any writing. But I got 2 individual text messages from him, and his wife is still alive. She's 99, and she does not text either. And she didn't have access to his phone. So it was like a confirmation that Bill is perhaps inside, and Bob Wood feels that he still is working because he contributed to design craft for the Navy up until the time of his transition. And he showed me some of the drawings of the things that he had created. They're absolutely astounding, Linda and Andrea. I would ask him, I said, Bill, how would you get these ideas? And he said, wherever he worked in secret think tanks for all the major aircraft manufacturers. And he said there was always 2 women that would be in the think tank with him and 1 man. The 2 women were both Nordic women, and the man was also a star visitor. The man would always be there to protect the 2 women because at times it could be unsafe down here. So he told me that they would create a vision in his mind's eye of what it is that he needed to work on. And I said, Bill, how would you perceive it? Would you see it holographically? And he said, no. He said he would be able to see it in much greater detail. And I said, at what level? He said, at a circuit breaker level or at a circuit board level. And he designed craft that were 15 miles long that are out in space. They were manufactured at the base of the, there's a mountain range at the, there's a basin where Salt Lake City is in, and the range lights or overshadows Salt Lake City. On the opposite end of this mountain range, and I forget the name of the mountain range offhand, there is this underground facility. And Bill told me, he said, it's all desert area. And he said, but there's 2 massive doors that were designed. Each door is 20 city square blocks long and wide. And he said, when they need to open up and bring one of these craft out, or one of them come in for repair, he said, these doors open up and everything that's on the surface, the plant life, the animal life, they're not disturbed by. They open so slowly and deliberately so that the craft could come in or a craft could go out, and then the doors close again. And he said, there's 30,000 people who work in this facility in Utah on the opposite end of where Salt Lake City is. And he said, they represent all different branches of the aerospace division of aircraft companies. And I mentioned this to Andrea. I said, Grumman Aircraft has been showing in the Philadelphia area a new commercial, and it shows a hangar that's fully lit. And there's something in the center of the hangar that's covered by a tarp, and it's on a tripod. And Linda, the camera goes slowly around this object, and there's no sound, there's no music, there's no narration. At the end of the commercial, a scroll comes across the bottom and says, wait till you see what's next. And Linda and Andrea, the shape underneath the tarp is not that of a plane. It's of a saucer.
Wow.
So it's like a tease what's coming next.
So what is the
Had those for like 100 years. They've had those for
what are the doors?
They've had them for a long
When
time.
the doors open, when the doors open outside the mountain, do they open like this? Do they go up?
They open down. They open down. They slowly open down. So nothing on the, yes. So, and they stay at a perfectly horizontal level when they're opening up.
They go down
They
like
go down.
this.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I
And
was
the
trying to
plant life
visualize
and animal life on it is not disturbed in any way. And he said the craft could take off, and then the craft could come in from outside our solar system or outside of our planetary system, or off of Earth orbit, and go back into the facility, this underground hangar. And he said it is so beautiful the way it's designed. And he said there's so much technology. He said they had developed the ability to use anti-gravity in the early 50s, and it opened it to the stars. And he said that there were 7 solar warden groups that he had designed. And he said he was working on the designs for the next 3. And he said the next 3 would be using faster than light technology. And he said to me, he said, Frank, what do you think it would be? And I said, Bill, it would be thought propulsion. I said, thought technology. I said, that's the only thing that's faster than light, because you could think of the furthest place in the galaxy and be there instantly, you know? And
Yeah.
he said, that's right. He said, the next three groups of solar warden craft were going to be thought propelled. And he said, we have interactions going on with the Nordic Navy, working in different parts of our solar system, different parts of our galaxy, and outside of our galaxy. And he said, they're such incredible, loving beings. And he said that when he was a 5-year-old boy, the ability to bilocate, and he would visit other planets and other civilizations. And he said he thought everybody had the ability to bilocate, Linda. And
Yeah.
that he would meet people on these planets that would tell him that when he was older, he would say, Bill, we're going to see you when you're an adult. And he wound up meeting those people when he got older. But he thought everybody had the ability to bilocate. But he had that gift. And he had the ability, when I would talk to him and explain a situation or an experience I had, he had the ability of being able to tune into the experience as if he was walking next to me and tell me what occurred next. He had a tremendous gift. Wow,
that's amazing. It's almost kind of like remote viewing, but except he was physically there, right?
Physically there, yes, yes.
Incredible.
He told me stories of places that he went to, places that I knew about that had underground facilities that I never knew existed. And he said, Frank, he said, there's underground facilities all over this planet. He said, some of them are connected by tunnels that are very, very ancient, that were built hundreds of thousands of years ago. And he said, there's others that were more recently made by the Navy and also by the Air Force to connect facilities underground under our continent and can reach other continents.
Right, like almost kind of like a tunnel that just goes all the way straight through, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
I told Andrea that there's a fellow that I know, his name is Major George Filer. He was an intel officer in the Air Force, and he would brief generals and colonels on a daily basis. And he had an experience as a young boy meeting visitors that looked like us at the age of like 5 or 6. And he was told that when he grew older, that he would also continue to benefit and give information about the star visitors and make people feel more accepting of them. So he told me that he had experiences in the Air Force. One was when they were doing maneuvers over England, and he says they were outside of an area near Bentwaters, and he said they had a radar sighting of a craft a mile in diameter. And he said then they had a visual sighting of it, a craft a mile in diameter. When they landed, they were all debriefed. They got a call from Buckingham Palace. Major Filer was invited to go over. Prince Philip was very much interested in UFOs. He invited the entire crew over to Buckingham Palace for cigars, brandy, and dessert. He wanted to hear each one of them talk about what it is that they had seen. Mm-hmm. So Major Filer would, I told you, would brief generals and colonels on a daily basis, and he was a courier to Curtis LeMay, who was in charge of the Air Force. He was with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he would carry messages to the Pentagon from other generals from other Air Force bases. And they used to kid him. They used to say his name is George Filer. They'd say, George, when you go to the Pentagon, you may meet the spaceman that's there. And he thought they were kidding with him. And they would keep saying to him, George, when you go to the Pentagon, keep an eye out. You may meet the spaceman that's there. Well, one time he was bringing a message from General Scott to Curtis LeMay, and he was met at the Pentagon by a full bird colonel. And they were on their way to LeMay's office, and they passed the cafeteria. And this full bird colonel said to George, he said, the spaceman that's visiting us is in the cafeteria eating. And George says, let's go in there and see him. He said, no. He said, the message you're bringing to LeMay, I have to bring you right over to Curtis LeMay's office. And he did. It was later, after he got out of the Air Force, he'd heard the story about Valiant Thor and Dr. Frank Strange's. And he never knew of that story. But he said, Frank, the people that I was interacting with and taking messages to the Pentagon, these are guys that didn't joke about stuff like that. And he said they were aware that Valiant Thor was there for that 3-year period as a guest of our government. And I shared this story with Andrea that George had to fly from Los Angeles to Chicago, and he happened to be in uniform, and this was in the early 60s. And when he approached the gate, the stewardess said, he was a captain at the time, he said, "Captain Filer, we have a policy that if someone's in uniform and there's an empty seat in first class, we'll be happy to seat you in first class at no cost." And they said, "We have a seat. Would you be interested in us putting you there?" And he said, "Sure, it'd be wonderful." So the stewardess escorted him to the seat he was going to be sitting in, and he saw who he would be sitting next to, and he recognized who it was immediately. So he sat down, and the fellow was reading the paper. After he finished reading the paper, he folded it, and he looked at George, and he said, "Do you know who I am?" And George said, "Yes." He said, "You're the actor who played the spaceman in The Day the Earth Stood Still." It was Michael Rene. And you've never seen that film. That film is a timeless classic about a visitor coming here and trying to warn mankind not to be involved in nuclear energy and warfare, and that we're a member of a cosmic star family, that they want to interact with us again, but they don't want our warlike characteristics and our warlike activities to be taken off of our planet and endanger other people.
Right.
So that movie was remade with Keanu Reeves, and it was totally bastardized from the original film that was made in 1952, but it tells the story of Valiant Thor before he actually came here. So it was like a precursor for the actual event that occurred. And the director of the film, I shared this with Andrea, Robert Wise was the director of the film, and he said he was approached by the government and they wanted him to do this film. And the opening sequence where you see a saucer flying around Washington, D.C. before it lands at the baseball field where the visitor comes out, he said that footage was given to him by the government. It's actual footage of a saucer, a daylight craft that was traveling around Washington, D.C., and the government gave him to Robert Wise, and they said, "We want you to use this in the film." So that film was authorized by the government as a way of a foundational stone to prepare people for the concept that there are visitors that look like us that are interacting down here. And what's really remarkable is that when George was talking to Michael Rennie, he said to George, he said, the government asked me to participate in the making of that film. And he said, "I've done other things, other work for the government as well." But he portrays almost a perfect star being. Wouldn't you say so, Andrea?
That was, he's a really nice guy. Yeah.
He looks like a star being. He really does. So, Linda, if you've not seen that film, it's on YouTube. It's called The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I have to watch. Yeah.
I'll send you the link for it. I'll send you the link for it. You can watch it on YouTube.
I mean,
and
his
the music,
demeanor in that movie is like, I mean, he just, I don't, how would he, it's like, I almost wonder, like, how would somebody at that time know? Because we get so much nowadays, we can hear about different things, but like, you wonder, like, how would he know how to do that?
I know, and he portrayed it perfectly. And he did stay at the Pentagon for a 3-year period. It didn't show 3 years in the film. It showed a brief period of time. And Valiant Thor had brought to the planet the concept of eliminating poverty, eliminating disease, eliminating hunger, eliminating aging. And he said the only thing that the government wanted was how his spacesuit could repel laser beams, that it couldn't be destroyed. They wanted to know the secret of the technology of his craft, that his craft is called Victor 1. It's a beautiful craft. It's 100 feet in diameter. And I was given the opportunity of being able to see a blueprint of the inside of the craft, which is really, really remarkable. And I'll share this with you. A fellow that I got a chance to know, he was a pilot in the Air Force. He had VIP status. He flew General George Marshall to two crash retrievals. And he was a Navy pilot, and he trained with the Mercury 7 astronauts. He knew John Glenn. He knew Edgar Mitchell. He knew all of them. He knew all the, and he said, "Frank, every one of the astronauts did have sightings of craft. They did see the craft." And he said that he flew General Marshall to 2 crash retrievals, and it was the only people on board the craft were Navy personnel, high-ranking Navy personnel, and scientists from the United States and Britain. One of them was in Reykjavik, and they recovered one from Reykjavik, and he flew Marshall there. And he also flew Marshall to one that was in Utah. And the one in Utah, he had a photograph of it, and it had U.S. Navy eyes only stamped on it, and it was on very, very heavy paper, and it showed a charcoal colored craft about 100 feet in diameter. And his name is Colonel Commander Graham Bethune. Graham said that 4 Navy personnel could pick up the craft. It was almost feather light. And he said it was brought to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and also Area 51. And he flew Admiral Byrd on missions as well. He flew Admiral Byrd to Antarctica to a mission with the Germans after the Second World War, where they tried to get the Germans to agree to share the technology that the Germans had engineered, because they had saucer technology, and the Germans said no. And Admiral Byrd had to be flown back to the Pentagon. He went through a complete debriefing, and they had Operation High Jump, which occurred in 1947, where the Navy was going to go down there and force the Germans to reveal the technology. And the Germans refused to do it, and there was a battle. It was called Operation High Jump, and the battle shows saucers coming out of the water that are 600 feet in diameter, and they lost a lot of Navy planes. They lost a couple Navy ships, and there's a documentary on YouTube about Operation High Jump that the Russians had released. It shows the footage of the actual battle, and when I saw that footage, I shared it with Dr. Bob Wood and also with Bill Tompkins, and he said, Frank, this is actual footage of that event. And he said, that's how the German saucers looked. They were 600 feet in diameter. So I would recommend you and Andrea could go on YouTube, or I'll send you the links for it, and you could see it yourself.
I showed it already. I showed it to and when we did Operation High Jump in my college classes, I showed them that video.
Good. If you could send that to me, I would love to, like,
I can keep your box full, Linda.
Yes, that would. Yes, please.
The one is the one in Russian? Is it the one in Russian?
Yes, the Russian documentary.
There's one in Russian, and then the one I showed was actually had French subtitles, so you can understand it.
Good,
awesome.
good.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
It's a true event. It's a true event.
I don't speak the French subtitles, yes, but Russian, no.
But I wanted to share with you
about what you just said too was about how the very lightness of the metal, being so feather light. And then you were talking earlier about how metal is sentient and conscious, and how it can speak to us and tell us what combinations to make. Maybe it could tell us how to make that metal so that we can have this lighter kind of craft ourselves. And
yes. Well, I wanted to say to you, I got a chance to meet a principal. He's a partner in a nanotech company out of Switzerland. And he heard one of my discussions with Jeff Renson. He contacted me, and he had his own experience. He had a near-death experience, and he got a chance to meet star visitors that were working with him. And he said, Frank, we are designing alloys that have consciousness. And he said, if you go into the lab, and he said, if you're in a bad mood, the metals, the new alloys that they're creating will show the colors that you're in a bad mood, like browns and dark reds and very gray colors. But he said, if you're in a good mood and you walk in, they'll emanate this incredible blue aura. And he told me, he said that the visitors are here. They're working with us. And he said the biggest problem that he has, him and other partners that have nanotech companies, is informing the people that they're hiring to work with them that they're going to be working alongside star visitors. They said, when we hire the people, we have to tell them they're going to be working alongside star visitors.
That's so funny, because that's what I said, because I was telling my friend Patrick, I was like, oh my God, like he could just showed me this picture. He just showed me a video. I'm like, well, he dyed his hair like kind of a brown color, and he was in Air Force uniform, the blue Air Force uniform, and he was in a helicopter, and I was like, do they know? I was like, do they know you're like you're in the Air Force? I was like, and I tell him, he's like, yeah. I'm like, he loved the helicopter. He thought that was the best thing. I'm like, oh my God. So I went to Patrick. I'm like, Patrick, he's in the Air Force. He's like, what? I'm like, I swear. That's what he showed me. And then I saw from Michael Sala with JP. I'm like, oh. because then they showed the badge, which is he was showing I don't know if you know psychic LJ Louise Jones. He was showing Louise the badge that the star people wear when they're working in the Air Force. So he's still working in the Air Force now. But I'll tell you what he's doing after.
Do you have an idea what the badge looked like, Andrea?
Yes, yes.
Can you share that or no?
Yeah. It's like a half star, no, is it moon, a half moon with a star, and then there was written USAF and something else underneath it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He was just wearing regular so they do something to their hair because normally he's got thick blonde hair. But at first I was like, who the hell is, first I didn't know who this was. I mean, and then it's I'm like, you die, like, yeah, but he just dyed his hair. Some will cut their hair military style, but he just dyed it like a light brown color.
Yes.
But yeah, but no, he's totally working. We just chat sometimes about there's a bunch of guys where there's some of the guys I had been working with that I would meet with when they would bilocate me
Yes.
to meetings with these three men. That
Yes.
I was telling you about these three men. So
Yes.
Eagle was in control of them. He was the commander over them, and they would meet with me. I met with them over the summer. Oh, I don't know, at least 4 times. And same 3 men. Sometimes they were in uniform, sometimes they weren't. And we would talk about the shift, basically what humans were. My information was about what I was noticing about humans around
Yes.
here, and of course they'd mind wipe most of it. But then he showed me a month ago, these 3 guys were back in their Federation uniform, and they were leaving, and they actually did leave. I haven't met with them since, so I think something's moving forward.
Yes. Yes.
But they are working in the military. Yes, they're not allowed to. We were going to try to meet this spring, but because they're not allowed to. What's the word? They signed a contract not to meet with civilians.
Yes.
Yeah. So far they can't meet with civilians.
Linda, if I could go back to that blueprint and Colonel or Commander Graham Bethune, I told
Yes.
Graham that I got a chance to meet with Dr. Frank Strange's backstage when I was living out in California at one of his lectures, and he shared with us the blueprint of Valiant Thor's craft Victor 1. And I told Commander Bethune about it, and he reached out to Dr. Frank Strange's and said, would it be possible for me to get a copy of that, for Commander Graham Bethune to get a copy of it? So Dr. Frank said to Graham, he said, Graham, all I could ask you to do is write a letter to Valiant Thor, use my address, I'll give it to him, and Val will respond back to you. So you sent a letter, and Valiant Thor said that he would give a copy of the blueprint to Commander Graham Bethune, but he said he didn't want Dr. Frank Strange's to mail it because it's too sensitive to mail. He said Commander Graham Bethune would have to come out to Van Nuys to Dr. Frank's home, and he would give it to him. So, of course, Graham Bethune flew out there, and he got the blueprint, and he came back, and he contacted me, and he said, Frank, let's get together and have lunch. He said, I want you to see this blueprint and tell me if it's the one that you had seen. And he had it in his briefcase, and we had a quiet table where nobody was around us, and we had nothing on the table, and he opened it up. And I said, Graham, that is indeed the blueprint that I had seen. And it's very lucky of you to have that from a gift from Valiant Thor.
Wow. That's amazing.
It really is. It's little things like that, little simple things in life. And the things that people shared with me were really, really remarkable. And it's wonderful to be able to share them with open-minded and receptive people.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's incredible. I'm just so excited that you're sharing all this information because to me, I feel like a kid at Christmas right now.
Thank you. You're very kind. You're very kind. You know, we're all students and we could always learn. And I always put out the thought, I told Andrea, I put out the thought that only the highest and best come to me, and only the highest and best that I share with people. And, you know, if you carry that energy with you, you meet some remarkable people.
Absolutely.
You
Yes.
really do.
Yes.
I told Andrea the story. I met this girl who works at Lockheed in King of Prussia. And she said, Frank, there's a guy who comes over to me every day. And she said, he's dressed impeccably. He wears a 3-piece suit. She said his skin and his hands and everything is perfect. He's got no blemishes. His hair's like a chestnut color. she said, his skin is like the most incredible skin she's ever seen on somebody. No blemishes, no imperfections. And every day he comes over and asks her, is everything all right with you? Is everything okay in your world? Are you having a good day? And she said, he's not coming on to me. He's just being very, very sincere and genuine, asking me if everything's all right. And she said, why do you think he's asking me that? And I said, I think he's a visitor, and he's letting you know that he would like to share with you and open up and discuss things with you. And she said, well, what do you suggest? I said, the next time he comes over to you, ask him, are you a visitor? And I said, that may open a door to your discussion with him about what it is that he's doing here and why he's working at Lockheed. And it may open some doors for her because they are here.
Has
Yes.
she tried to telepath with him?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to her recently. I'm hoping to talk to her, so I'll be able to give you some feedback. But I want to
She should just start
telepathing.
Yes. I feel like the telepathy lately has been very strong.
Everyone,
Yes.
It just
I
feels
agree.
like it's real, like we just got an upgrade or something,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's been crazy lately.
well, I think
Yeah.
everyone can do it. They just think, I mean, you just had that, stupidity that went through everywhere telling you can't, but everyone can do everything. Everyone can bilocate. Everyone can be a telepath. Everyone can do all of these things.
Yes.
Absolutely.
They're all
Yes.
inherent gifts. They're all inherent gifts, talents, and abilities.
Right. We were born with them. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. We brought them in
Linda,
with
there's one short story I'd like to share with you. Then I'm going to have to go back to the world of illusion. But
yes.
one of the contactees told me that the Galactics are here amongst us. And she said, Frank, some of them have been here living in neighborhoods all around the world, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. She said that when disclosures made known, people that have been living in neighborhoods that have been here for those periods of time are going to reveal themselves to be galactic beings. And the people who live in those neighborhoods will say, I knew that family for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. They're very kind, loving people. They're no threat at all. So the galactics will reveal themselves as living in neighborhoods all around the world, so people will be more accepting of them, that they're
Right.
non-threatening. Isn't that beautiful?
I can't wait. I want it now.
I know. Yes. I'm told to be patient, but remain positive. Be patient, but remain positive.
I'm remaining positive. I'm trying to remain patient.
It's a test. It's a test.
It's definitely a test.
But
Patience
if
is
it's
a virtue.
possible, yes, if it's possible, I'd like to return with you and Andrea for
Oh,
more
absolutely.
future discussions. But unfortunately, now I need to go back to the world of illusion.
I understand completely. And I had a question for you from my viewers, but
Sure.
I can postpone it until the next time. And that's, I
Can
know
we do that?
you're on a
Can we
time
do that?
constraint. I'm
Okay.
sorry?
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. And I promise to send you some really good things to be aware of that I'm happy to be able to share with people that are open and receptive. Whatever I share with you, Linda, share with whomever you feel is open and would like to see this.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want everybody to know, as far as I'm concerned, this is all something that everybody should know, and we can just share it with people who are ready to receive it. And I just hope more and more people will be ready, because it's exciting, and it's something that's good. It's not something to be afraid of.
Yes. I had said to Andrea that we're, part of a cosmic family, and our cosmic family members want to interact with us openly now. And it's long past due. It really is long past due.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for appearing here and for, discussing all of this with us and just taking the time to do this.
Thank you. It's a joy and an honor to be able to share. And I know I share a lot of extraordinary information with people, but all I say is let it come into your consciousness, put it on the back burner of your thinking, and maybe it'll help you to connect with one concept to another and help you bridge chasms of consciousness, because we're going to be given a lot of extraordinary information, and revelations are going to be fast and furious.
Yes. I'm so excited.
I am too. Take care. See
Thank
upstairs. See
Yeah.
upstairs. You too, Andrea. See upstairs.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
For
Bye-bye.
now. Bye.
You soon.